Hey guys, subscribe for daily content. And if you're shopping for gear, make sure you check out the description for the newest items at some of the very best online retailers. There's also links for some of the items that I personally recommend. Thanks!
What's going on YouTube? Metal Complex here, and today I've got a short little knife review / knife overview to share with you guys. This is the CJRB and Ray Laconico Prado. At least that's how I'm going to pronounce it. I feel like this knife is kind of flying under the radar for a lot of people, so I'm just going to say this right off the bat, right at the beginning. This is really good, and it solves the problem of one of the other CJRB releases, that knife that is very similar to the Pyrite that has the opening hole. The opening hole in that knife is carved out underneath the scale, or it's slightly covered by the scale, so the access to it is not very good. This is not the case with this knife. You can get in there and completely access that hole, giggity, and it makes it a lot easier to manipulate. It's a little on the larger side, so it might not be perfect for some people, but wow, at 54 bucks, this is really good. No surprise there. Ray Laconico has been designing knives for a long time, and from my perspective, he almost always hits the nail on the head. He also designed their Echo model, which is really great. A lot of people prefer that actually over the Pyrite, but anyways, it's very good. The price is fair. It's good to go. If you want to hear my thoughts, hang around because I'm going to let you know. If you don't care, you just want to go for the knife, I'll link it in the description. It comes in a few different configurations. It does help my channel when you use those links, but that's entirely up to you. Thanks to my patrons for supporting me, and please make sure to follow me on Instagram at metal_complex. Try and get through specs quickly so we can talk about this knife. Overall length, 8¼ inches, not huge, full size. Blade length approaching, no, just 3.6 inches. Cutting edge, 3.5 inches. Nice. That's Laconico. That's Laconico for you. Thank you very much. Let's put it up against, let's do some size comparisons. Any custom scales you find in this section can be found down in the description under Original Goat and Others. Up against the 8010 and the 8020.5. You can see here it's not nearly as robust or tall as the 8010, but it is approaching the overall length, just 1/4 inch short with actually a little more. That's about identical in terms of cutting edge. Way longer than the 8020.5. Let's go ahead and put it up against the Spyderco PM2 and the Spyderco Para 3. Very similar in overall length to the Spyderco PM2 with much more cutting edge, much larger than the PM2. And then last but not least, forgetting which knife we're reviewing here, the Demco, the Benchmade Griptilianer, in this case the Ritter Hogue and the Hogue Deca. How's the action? I'm kind of glad they did a crossbar lock on this one and not a button lock. I like their crossbar locks. They're high tension omega springs, right? So this really functions well. That opening hole there and the position of it means that when you deploy the knife, it doesn't feel lazy or sluggish. It feels like you're getting full leverage off of it. And surprisingly, usually when you got the opening hole way up here, right, and it's just barely cut off, usually it's not a super satisfying thumb flicker, but it is. It definitely is. So I think the axis lock works. I'm also aware that they have their recoil lock, which I am guessing they're going to implement on a bunch of different stuff. The newest one that I handled had a coil spring in it, which, let me just say this right off the bat, CJRB Artisan Cutlery, that's great. Thank you so much. Please put that on as many different things as you possibly can. I think, for example, this knife would do very well with one of those recoil locks. Why? Because omega springs, while it's unlikely, can fail, and it's very frustrating and irritating. Coil springs, I feel like it's going to be 10 failed omega springs to 1 failed coil spring. I just think that's a better system. I also think the placement of it might make actuation a little easier, but I'm not saying that this is bad. I'm saying I can't wait for you guys to start putting that on everything. This is an example of a knife that would shine like a golden phoenix amidst a sea of mediocrity. It would be really, really great. But the way that this operates is fine. The action is great. It's very easy to actuate. It's very satisfying, right? Let's go ahead and do carry profile. Thickness up against the Spyderco Para 3. It's not all that thick. In fact, it's thinner than the Para 3. Length and height up against the PM2 and Para 3. This is a magnet on this Naf's burrito over here, and the PM2 is getting caught. It's folded up. It's a little shorter than the PM2. It's definitely a little longer than the Para 3. Not quite as tall as either, though. This really was not cumbersome in the pocket. It's actually a pretty compact full-size knife, or what I'm going to refer to as full size. Let's do a hardware check. I'm going to get out my tools as per usual. My tools are very inexpensive and very recommendable. You can find them right down in the section of my description that talks about the tools I use in this channel, as well as the pinned comment. For the pivot, we have a T8. We also have T8 body screws. And look at this. No. I was like, oh boy, they got a lipped or like a floating standoff here, but no, it's 2 screws per side, and then we have pocket clip screws that are T6. That's okay, not a big deal. We do have ambidextrous clip mounting positions, which is definitely a big deal considering it's ambidextrous lock. Should be pretty darn easy to take apart outside of the general frustrations of Axis style locks. I have taken apart your new coil spring recoil lock, and that's easier than the Omega Spring locks. So another reason why it would be really nice to transition most of your, or to at least offer like a separate, recoil lock version of the knives. But this it's nowhere near impossible, right? Anybody, who's like me, big fan of Benchmade, not so much currently with the pricing, but I still like Benchmade knives. That's kind of where I got my experience disassembling the Omega Spring locks or the Axis lock, right? It can be frustrating, but once you do it a few times, you get it. This is going to be a little bit easier because we're not dealing with the typical cartridge style system. Still probably something you're going to have to hold down, position things correctly, push pivots in, put it back together. At least they use T8. So as long as you have the right tools for the job, you should be good to go. Tape the blade off, meaning put tape on the blade. Learn from my mistakes and many others. Put tape over the blade so you don't cut yourself, because there is a lot of holding things down and holding things apart, and it's easy to slip is what I'm saying. Let's go ahead and do we'll measure blade stock thickness and then we'll weigh it. We'll do things a little backwards today. I'm going to guess that's probably 125 thousandths. Oh, 120 thousandths. I was close. Okay. 120 thousandths on the blade. We're going to weigh it. What are we looking at for materials? G10 steel liners, which I think they might be black. Yeah, they are. They're black, but they are full steel liners. So we have G10 in this case. You can also get it in wood. And then we have AR RPM 9, which is Artisan Colors' proprietary budget powder form steel, and is essentially a powder form 9CR18 MOV, which is just fine for this price point. The weight on this guy, 3.32 ounces. I don't have a problem with that at all, considering we're looking at a 3.6-inch blade. I think that's pretty awesome, so nice work there. Balance on this knife, my guess is it's a little blade heavy, or no, it's right behind the pivot. That's exactly where you want it, so we're good to go there. All right, mean potatoes. This is pretty straightforward. It looks like the Echo and the Pyrite mixed together, but it's full size, right? And the access to that hole there, much like the Echo, is just great. This is just a really great overall design. Not a design that we've never seen before, but it's just a good execution of a classic knife design that's just subtly different from a lot of other things out there that are similar, right? The ergonomics are great. There's a choke up spot right here that's really great. And there's a little ledge and a large sharpening choil, so you're well aware of where your fingers are. It's just very comfortable, very straightforward, almost Spyderco-esque. There's a lot about this knife that makes me think of classic Benchmade and classic Spyderco kind of mixed together, which is it's really great. It's that stuff without some of the quirks that used to bother us, right, from back in the day. It's just CJRB doing things correctly and, altering certain things with certain designs. In this case, Ray Laconico, sort of adding his own personal spice in there. And the end result is just very, very good. And you guys don't need a YouTube knife reviewer to tell you that this is a good design. I think you can probably figure that out by looking at pictures, but maybe you came here just to make sure, right? It's great. The blade profile is excellent, wonderful EDC. You have tons of cutting edge, and it gets relatively thin down here at the edge. Really nice slicer. AR RPM 9 isn't going to win any awards in the edge retention department, but then again, you don't necessarily, personally, with a knife like this that I'm going to take out and throw around and just beat on it because it's just not very expensive, I don't really want a steel that, you know, is going to take forever to resharpen. I want something I can touch up pretty easily. And honestly, the balance of this steel for the price point it's in, I like it. I still like it. It's been around for a bit, but when I say a bit, I think it came out, what did they bring this out? 5 years ago? So it's not that old. It's still young, right? But yeah, really nice. They call this polished AR RPM 9. I don't know why they call it. It's just a belt satin finish. So if you're wondering, does that mean something? No, it's just a belt satin finish. I don't know what's different here. It doesn't look any different than anything else to me. That's fine. No big deal. Jimping feels like it's in the right place. Edges here, chamfering, a little bit of scalloping going on. So this area is exceptionally comfortable. The pocket clip stops, I think, well before the 50% line of the knife, and the bill is not super prominent, so it really doesn't dig into your hand. Even choked back, it's not that bad. This position here and choked up, I think the standard grip is probably the most comfortable. I do like this little ramp right here. Swedge looks nice, flat looks nice. I mean, it's pretty typical. I guess I call it a drop. I call it a drop point, but it's not really. I think it's more of a clip point, I guess, just an elongated clip point. Actually, there'd be a modified clip point with a. That's whatever, right? You're never gonna get your handcuffs on me, blade-shaped police. I'm sorry. Anyways, we have CJRB on one side, we have AR RPM 9 and some weird code on the other, and Arla Conoco. Not that big of a deal. Pretty small, right? Not an enormous amount of billboarding. Fit and finish all the way around on this knife is very good, very typical of modern CJRB. A little tiny bit of stick on the axis bar, but not much, and it'll probably work itself out. They know how to do a crossbar lock. It's not something that I'm really concerned about disengaging as long as you're not being stupid with your knife. I'm certain that I could swing this knife really, really hard at a hard surface and get it to disengage, but that doesn't represent any natural or reasonable, logical use of a pocket knife. So for me, that's meaningless and I don't really care. As long as it can survive a little bit of spine pressure and a little bit of light spine impact, that's good enough for me. They do a good job with it. We have a couple of standoffs back here and a little bit of a little lanyard bar hole thing. That's fine, right? If you like lanyards, there it is. If you don't like lanyards, well, you can just ignore that that's there, like the other 99.99999% of the knife world. The pocket clip is definitely deep carry, completely deep carry, so all you're going to see is the pocket clip, and like I said, it is mountable for left or right hand tip up, which is fine. Access there to the hole, again, very, very good. You can see there that scalloping sort of lending to that. I really like that. Texturing in the surface, the heads of the axis bar or the crossbar lock, very good, very smooth. It's not super aggressive texturing. It doesn't need to be. It's something that's actually interesting to point out. So many companies like turn these into, it's just like a wad of barbed wire. And I'm like, why? Why do they think that we need that much texturing? This is fine. They stick out just a little bit. They've got little rounded button heads. Probably 2 steps of texturing right there. That's it. So to any company that might be watching this or anybody considering designing, right? We don't need these ridiculously textured, aggressive systems. Like they just don't, we don't need that. It's unnecessary, right? These rounded heads here will work just fine. We have no shouldering, but it doesn't need it. This knife does run on bearings. I don't know if you can see that in there, but it definitely does. No blade play, up, down, left, or right. Nice high tension on those Omega springs. No pivot lash, smooth and consistent in here. And I think probably the way that the tang is rounded and definitely the tension, it's mostly the tension on the Omega springs means that this area here is pretty snappy, and it's also part of the reason it's so satisfying to deploy. This is a very recommendable knife. It's $54. And for anybody disappointed with, I keep forgetting the name of that knife that they recently released. That it looked like a bug out, right? But it had the opening hole, and where everybody's like, "Wow!" And they just didn't put it in the right place. This to me is like a better version of that. It's a little bigger. CJRB and Artisan Cutlery, I would love for you guys to do a premium version of this. In fact, I think you would explode the knife world. Not really, but people would really like it if you made an S90V in titanium version of this knife, and you put your cool recoil lock on it. I think that would make people pretty happy if you did that. I would recommend contouring and texturing similar to the Premium Echo. Yeah, this is a fantastic budget knife and would translate very well into a premium knife. Even if you didn't put your recoil lock on it and you just did a crossbar lock, I think that would also go over well. But this is one of those knives that I just think needs a premium version. And I would love to see your best sand washed or sand polished S90V blade. I've commented a few times. There seems to be some variance in that, but like the Satyr or the Satyr that I have is beautiful. It's very, very high polish near mirror, but I'm just trying to imagine like an ultimate version of this knife. I think that would go over very well, and I would bet that you guys could price it pretty well too. So as far as this knife goes, it is excellent. It is super recommendable at $54. Buy it. This is great. It's awesome. But I'd love to see this translated into a premium model through either CJRB or Artisan Cutlery. It doesn't matter. Good stuff. Very recommendable. It's going to go on my Cheap Knives I Like playlist because it's well under $75. And it's also going to go on my Most Recommended Knives playlist because it's just really good. So thank you to Ray Laconico for designing this awesome knife. Thanks to Artisan Cutlery for sending it in. I will eventually give this away on a live stream, which I'll remind everybody is usually Friday evenings at 6:30 p.m. Central Standard Time. So stop by if you want to hang out with me live and potentially win a knife. Please make sure to follow me on Instagram at metal_complex. If you enjoyed this video, leave a like. If you'd like to check out my other content, I do, of course, have lots of videos of knives that are either expensive or inexpensive that I do or don't like, so check those out. And if you enjoy all my content, go ahead and click on that Metal Complex logo right there and subscribe because there's definitely more coming. Thanks again for watching, everybody, and have a great day.